Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Ade Ayobet Predict. First, I would like to congratulate those people that played our last handicap free tips on this particular channel in our last video. And in today's video, I'm going to put you guys through the process of predicting basketball over points. Actually, in this particular ticket, I actually involve so many predictions and options in predicting basketball in it, which involves predicting who to win the game, over and under games. For me, I don't really like going for the under, but there are some things that I always consider before going for it. Alright, so if you are watching this particular video, just make sure that you are paying a very good close attention to all the details in this particular videos, because I'm going to show you guys features that you need to consider in predicting basketball games. We all know that basketball games may not be consistent, when it comes to predicting basketball game, they are not always consistent with the results, even if you make use of the right and the best betting strategy. But in today's video, I'm going to give you additional tips when it comes to predicting basketball games. So if you look at this particular games very well, it involves different predictions, that is the who to win the game, under and the over points. And it is very easy to accumulate thousands of odds when it comes to using basketball game, because if you look at the game very well, the total number of the games involved just 28 games, and I was able to acquire 1600 odds. Initially the odds was around 4000 odds, but some games started before I was able to finish doing the analysis. So now, before we start, I want you guys to know that if you happen to be someone that cannot that is not really content with small odd or going for handicap game, because most times for my VIP groups I always make use of handicap betting tips because of the consistency that it has to some extent. But if you happens to be someone that cannot really don't really like small odd and is not really content with playing games of maybe like 2 odd, 3 odd, if you want to go into basketball, make sure that you are ready to to sacrifice your time, because it takes a lot of time. So now let's assume that you want to go for the over points prediction, because I'll be focusing on that in this particular video very well. So among this particular bet slip, I'll be making use of a particular game as an example in this particular video on how on the features to consider in predicting your basketball over points. So now if you look into this particular game very well, you can see that the lowest odd line that the bookmakers are kind of providing happens to be 1.19 odd, and it shows that these particular games happens to be a sign of that the bookmakers are not really assured of whether the game will be over or the under. So if the game is going to be over, the bookmakers don't care about this particular odd if you win it, because one thing about bookmakers is that you will never see among all these over, odd and under, you will never see a particular point in time whereby the bookmakers will provide you an odds that we average onto two odds, that whether you play over, because what we call fair play in betting odds, when it comes to odds allocation, is that at least if you pick over or you pick under, it's either you lose or you win. And if you win over, that means that you win 100 odds. And if you happen to go for the other way around, maybe you go for the under and you eventually lost, or if you win and you play these two, there's something that people always call arbitrage betting, by playing something like this, and but it cannot really work using it on just a particular best platform. You have to make your research on other best platform. But when bookmakers are providing a very long odds line like this or market, it is just that if you go for the small points, there is a high probability that you won't really make much from them, so they know what they are doing. But one thing that you need to do is that you don't just pick games blindly. I have a friend that always do that very well. The guy always pick games blindly, like he said, why do you stress your time in checking the stats? And also I can relate with what the guy was trying to say, because there are some situations whereby you check the stats, and even though despite checking the stats you will still lose your game, but there are some ways that you can limit the loss. Alright, so now let us check the stats and let us quickly look into these particular features that you need to always consider before predicting your basketball games. We are focusing on over right now, and there are things that you need to look into. For me, I always like to look into the last previous games that the teams played against other teams, and also the last previous games against each other. But in some situations, I always skip this because I always apply the use of there's a particular AI tools that I always use, and I've made so many videos on how to make use of these AI tools. And but the only problem there is just that, or the only stressful thing about using the AI tools is based on how you prompt them. There are some, because I always tell some people that when some people were requesting for the prompt from the prompt, okay, actually I ended up giving them the prompt, but the problem there is just that you don't use a fixed prompt, just a single prompt for your AI. You keep asking them questions, you have to build your AI, you have to train them, and this particular thing is based on process. So for this particular game, we look at it very well. The bookmakers are not providing the like, probably they are not providing, I think probably maybe because of network. But if you look at it very well, we have their last previous games against each other, as you guys can see. But if you check the head to head here, you are going to see the last previous games that they had against other opponents. So when it comes to this kind of situations, do you know that I don't really stress myself anymore when it comes to that? So the number one features that you need to look into, which happens to be the first, happens to be the form, the last previous games of the teams that are playing, the average points from their, the last previous games they played against other opponents. And if you look here, you are going to see the points that they played against other opponents, and for the away team, you are going to see their own here. And if you look further, you are going to see some figures about their head to head average team points. If you look at this place, you are going to see the total points, the first half, the second half, the quarter, and spread, and so many more like that. But when it comes to predicting over points, how I initially, when I first started playing basketball, so this happens to be the aspect that I always look into, just only this aspect when it comes to predicting basketball over points. So I told you guys that the first features that you need to look into, in case you happen to be someone that always consider the form, you can look at the form of the teams that you want to play them as over. Then you look at the last previous games against each other, you look at the last previous games against other opponents, and you come to this particular segment to look into the total points, which happens to be the average total points. But the purpose of me telling you guys to check the last previous game against other opponents and the last previous games against each other is just that, to be able to extract the average points in this particular last previous games that they've played. And now it just came to my new idea that I can actually include the use of technology in predicting my basketball games, because I think using technology or AI to predict your basketball game seems to be very, very good compared to using it on football games. So now we've seen that, okay, these particular teams happens to be teams that we should be expecting high figures of points from this particular game, but I did not rely on these particular data alone. There's a particular way I always prompt my AI stuff. I would have shown you guys, but it's not something that is simple like that. It's a very simple thing actually, but the process is not that very simple. So this is what I do. I'm going to use some of the games that I've played. I'm going to use them to show you guys to show you the possible outcome of the games. Alright, so I've made a screenshot of the prediction from the AI app for this particular game, this one and this. So now I'm going to show you guys how you can, in case if you are able to prompt your AI rightly, I'm going to show you guys things that you need to look into before you can conclude on predicting your games as over point. Alright, so now the first game that we are going to look into the prediction of the AI is Madrid against this particular opponent. That the game ended up as 85 and 78. So now, alright, so I've made a video on the names of the AI tools that I always make use of. I've told you guys that I make use of Capilot, ChatGPT, and Gemini most times, but most times I always try to use ChatGPT because I can quickly access it compared to the other ones. Because so now, if you look at the game that we just checked right now, Real Madrid against their opponent, and if you look at the prediction of this particular AI tools, it happens to give me the range and the score range of the home team and the score range of the away team, and it says Real Madrid to have at least maybe probably 85, the ranging of 85 to 90 points, and for the away team to have the range of the point of 75 to 80 points. So the process, how I prompt this particular AI is actually what you guys may not really understand in this particular video, because I always try to provide it with a lot of data and ask different questions. It's not based on just one fixed, when it comes to prompting your AI, it's not only based on just one fixed prompting stuff, because the way you prompt it is the way the stuff will respond to you. Try it, ask the same questions, like request for the same predictions in different ways, and you are going to see that you are going to get different response. So now, if you look at it very well, the score range for the home team is 85 to 90, and the score range for the away team happens to be 75 to 80. So what you just need to do whenever you want to predict your over point happens to be the prediction, just go for the 85 and 75, which happens to be the smallest point that you have. The range are the smallest points that fall under the range of these predictions. Though I'm not saying that you should start using this particular process to predict your who to win in basketball games. In basketball games, predicting who to win is sometimes based on luck, to be sincere, because you have some situations whereby a team that was given an odd of 1.02 losing to a team that was given an odd of maybe 20 or 30 odds. So predicting basketball games who to win sometimes can be very very tricky or lucky. So now we have the smallest point for the Madrid and their opponents, and we have 85 and 75. And if you look at the outcome of the game, we have the game ending up as 85 and 78. So now imagine you predicted this particular game as 85 plus 75, or if the bookmakers are providing you with a low odd option for the game, surely you would have won this particular game, because if you add 85 and 75 all together, you are getting 160, and that prediction is over 160, and the bookmakers are providing over 153 for me. So therefore I decided to go for something that is below the actual average point. So now, looking at the last one, Spartak, and we have Spartak and this. So let's check. So if you look at this particular game very well, they were not really expected to play a very high point like that, because if you look at it, we have the range of the points for the home team to be around 80 to 85, and the range for the away team to be around 70 to 75. And this is the reason why I said you should not always make use of this particular process to predict your who to win the game. Basketball game can be, cunning, and it turns I told you that predicting who to win is mostly based on luck when it comes to basketball. So now, if you look at it very well, we have 80 to 85 and 70 to 75. If you are to add these particular two figures together, you should be getting 150. I mean, these two smallest points from these two games, that is 80 and the 70. Adding it together, you are getting 150. And for me, I always consider different factors, as I told you guys earlier, that you have to check the average points and look into some of the last previous games that they've been playing against each other. And now the outcome of the game was very very amazing, though it was a very close margin between the two teams, but they went far ahead of the points predicted. And also, I would have predicted this particular game at something lower against this particular stuff as a 155, but this happens to be the smallest odd, like the minimum odd that the bookmaker provided. So I just decided to risk the game to go for over 155. It was supposed to be predicted as over 150. And moving on to this particular game, honestly, this happens to be one of the reasons why I'm always afraid of predicting basketball games as under. If you look at this game very well and looking at their stats initially before they start playing these particular games at all, what you should be expecting from this game happens to be under 154 or under 155, and the game ended up as over. But there are some factors that I decided to consider before moving on to making use of the AI too, and before I just decided to go for the over. Going for the over or under in basketball can be very risky. So guys, so if you look at it very well, it says that the range of the home team happens to be around 75 to 80, and the range for the away team happens to be 70 to 75. And don't forget, I told you guys that if I want to predict over, I always go for the smallest point of range that is expected from the match as predicted by the AI tools. But if you are patient enough to watch this video to this length, it shows that you've been focusing on some tips and the process in predicting your basketball over games. Now I'm going to give you guys additional tips in predicting your basketball games. So predicting this particular game is supposed to be around over 145, right? Because joining the smallest point range of the home team and the smallest point range of the away team eventually ended up in this particular high scoring game. Now these are the additional points that I'm going to offer you guys, additional tips that it comes when it comes to using this particular AI tools, in addition to checking features from the start of the bookmakers. But if you are not using this particular bet platform, probably you are using other bet platform, this is what you can also do. So, alright, the process of predicting basketball over games can be stressful, and this is what will set you apart from being a gambler. If you're a sports trader, you have to be very careful and you have to observe your games very well. Gamblers always just pick games just anyhow, and that's why some people they don't really know it sometimes, that even games that they are not supposed to play, they will just feel like just playing games. Now, this is a tip that I want you guys to take note when it comes to using this particular AI tools to validate your basketball over point predictions. If you look at this very well, you can see that I'm trying to provide this particular AI tools with some information that are very, very necessary in order to to gain more insight, because most of these particular AI tools sometimes may not be able to accurately access the data from the web. If you notice very well, sometimes some AI will be telling you that they cannot access the web, of which they do sometimes, but it's not often. So if you look at this very well, you are able to get this thing will help you to extract the average points, which happens to be something that you can actually do for yourself. But the purpose of this extraction by the AI tools will really help the AI to really understand, because if you want to predict your basketball over points and you are considering getting the average points from the home team and the away team and in their head to head, you are still going to go through this particular process. It happens to be a process that I've been going through before using this particular tools. I always consider the average point. Now this thing will help you to derive the average point for the home team, for the away team, and also for their head to head. And the purpose of you doing it on this particular AI tools is that it will help the AI to really to further understand how to predict your game, the range, because basketball game is not something that you just be like, okay, this should be the exact total point. It will give you the range of the total point that you should be expecting from this particular game. So it will do this for the home team, and it will also do this for the away team, as you guys are saying it, and it will also do it for their head to head, because it will show you guys outcome of their games, and as you guys are saying it with the dates of it. Now from there, it will now move on to the key observation. This is where the to this particular system will evaluate data provided, and by doing that it will give you insights on the some comments and so more like that. And but the aspect that always concern me the most, that I'm only concerned about, happens to be the aspect of the predictions, predicted outcome from the data I provided the stores. So it will look into probably who to win the game, likely competitive match, and so many more like that. But the only aspect I'm concerned about is this particular range after providing the AI stuffs with accurate data. But first, before you conclude on using this particular AI stuff, please kindly make sure that you check the stats, check the average points based on the data provided by the bookmakers. Then you can move forward, to apply the method of this particular AI tools. So in case you want to ask any question regarding to this particular better strategy of the over points when it comes to basketball game predictions, you guys can actually drop your comments in the comment section. And also, if you want to join us on our WhatsApp VIP group, I'm going to drop the group link in the video description and also in the comment section. So in case you want to join us on our Telegram channel in order to be getting latest updates whenever we drop games, whenever we drop free tips, and whenever we drop new videos, you can also join our Telegram channel. And don't forget to like our video. In case you are just joining us, make sure that you click on the subscribe button. So this is how simple the process of the basketball over prediction is, and trust me, at least it will really help you to some extent. Don't forget, betting cannot always be 100%. Kindly make sure that you bet responsibly. See you guys in the next video. Bye.